government from crumbling. Joining me now is Eurasia Group President Ian Bremmer. Ian, thanks for joining us this morning. How much longer can Cyprus hold on to power here? Will there be a major political shakeup?
We're in the middle of what's going to be an incremental shakeup. As you know, over 30 members of his Syriza party, the left faction, chose not to vote with him to support this raft of packages in Parliament last night in Greece. That means that, but they've said that they're going to stick with the party. So the first thing he'll do is he'll have a cabinet reshuffle, and he'll get rid of the ministers that voted against him. He's going to end up with a minority government in very short order, and at some point, I think he's going to have to put new elections together. That'll probably lead to some form of national unity government. Whether or not Cyprus will still be prime minister at that point is an open question. So I think you're really talking about months for the remaining nature of his tenure as opposed to years.
Ian, when we're looking at the video that we're seeing right now out of Athens last night, I mean, unbelievable pictures there. The people they're protesting. They're violently protesting. What is it that they want?
I think it's astonishing how peaceful Greece has been given what they've gone through on every economic indicator, a depression that has been much worse than the United States experienced during the Great Depression. They certainly want to understand that they're going to have opportunities to return to growth, and there's no way they can repay their debt. So fundamentally, that means this is not an austerity issue. This is a debt issue. The Greek debt is going to have to be forgiven. And you've got two real problems going forward, leaving aside whether or not Cyprus can be prime minister. The first is, can any Greek government actually implement the extraordinary measures that have just been passed by the Greek parliament, given the weakness of the Greek economy and the weakness of the Greek political system? The second question is to what extent the Europeans are actually prepared to forgive Greek debt, politically and economically. And if they're not, you're not going to see any third bailout with IMF participation. I guarantee you that.
Well, is Greece not to, Ian, it's Dagen McDowell. Can Greece exist? Will the violence get worse unless there is some sort of debt forgiveness by Europe? It seems like that the cards are lining up for that to happen at some point.
Look, Greece is not Tunisia. It's not Egypt. If as the deal plays out, you do not have people in Greece that are starving, but you do have larger numbers of Greeks that are taking the drugs, that are catching AIDS, that are dying of it. The public health care system is falling apart. It's disastrous what these people are going through right now, and it's it's obviously a very emotional, it's a very passionate nation, but it's also a very proud nation. They're not going to tear their country apart. I don't believe that. But I do think that the situation that Greece is in over the next few months is not going to be better than what we saw in the run-up to this deal. All this deal accomplished was to kick the can down the road, something the Europeans are astonishingly good at. But ultimately, we're going to go back. There's going to be another European summit. This is not going to last for long.
Russell, part of the story in Greece is this wealth gap that we continue to see around the world. Obviously, in Greece, you have the extreme rich, you have the extreme poor, something you see spread throughout Europe. It's a big problem.
Well, it's throughout the world. Of course, we can't forget that in America, the gap between the rich and the poor has grown dramatically, and even in all the new economic growth in America, we still see extreme poverty. We're struggling with rebuilding some kind of a decent health care relationship with the poor. I feel like it's the nature of, especially like in the case of our democracy, it's so flawed because business has such a great chokehold on government. And I think that that's something that you see around the world, people's influence in government, so that the elected officials work for the money and not the people.
You talk about
I occupied in America for that reason. So just to bring it back home, we have that problem. We have corporations who can use so much water just to make a hamburger, so much, there's so much, the prison industrial complex, which can influence our government and take all our tax dollars to incarcerate nonviolent
Do you think that there's a
drug
presidential
offenders.
candidate that's out there right now that could best handle the problem that you're describing?
Well, most candidates are beholden to money and have make promises going into office and are stuck in their relationship with business and not in their relationship with their voters. That's our reality. You know, we look at the city of New York, where we had a great progressive elected, and in many cases he was beholden to money. Where that's been our reality, even here in New York.
Yeah.
Previous to that, we had Mayor Bloomberg, who was wealthy and made decisions on his own, and those decisions, even though I didn't agree with most of them, were decisive, were strong, and ultimately were pretty good for this city.
All right, more
the independence.
That's his independence.
More on this with Russell Simmons and Dagen McDowell in just a second. I also want to thank Ian Bremmer for jumping in on this breaking Greece story and as it continues to unfold. Ian, thank you.
My pleasure.
All right.